Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. So,
Can hear you, but
today,
can't see you yet.
oh, uh, let's see. Okay, sorry, I need a little haircut. I'm not as inclined the older I get. Uh, so, I guess, some of us are creatures of habit and some of us are not. Like I find that um, I never get into a certain mode and I just continue that. I have to have something new. That must be close to enlightenment. I'm just kidding. Um, but if I do something three times, that's enough for me. And actually, it's a wonderful way to live because you never uh, become too attached to anything. People used to attribute it to be me being Gemini. And I'm like, no, you need to read the Dharma and you understand why this is so natural for me. It's like I found my place in the Dharma. I found myself on the map. So whenever you are looking at yourself, thinking about the ways that you think, always bring the Dharma into it and see where you can find something, and then your mind can shift. Today, I really wanted to talk about our negative self talk because I know a lot of times we talk about how we could do better, um, and why we should do better, and how when you're happy you make people around you happy. So it's a good thing. But today I wanted to uh, really jump to the other side so that we can have a balance in our life. Last week we shared I think it was on, how many of you were on Thursday? I only see 8 of you in live. The rest are names, but for the 8, how many were on last Thursday? 10. Oh, okay. Uh well, I'm going to still talk about this. Or unless it was Tuesday. Did I talk about the book on the Terry's Enlightenment on Tuesday or Thursday? One finger up for Tuesday, two fingers up for Thursday. Okay, that was on Thursday. All right. Well, some of you missed it, so I'm going to give you a 2-minute synopsis, 3-minute synopsis. It had to do with a book that was written recently, I think maybe a year ago, and it just like took the world by storm. And it was written by a young man who has deep admiration, I think, for bhikkhunis, and had a great zeal about bringing their pronouncement of their enlightenment to the public. What does that say, Lou? Oh, you're holding the book up. Yes. And bringing their pronouncement of their enlightenment to the world. And he took a lot of poetic and creative license with it. And basically, it's his book of poetry, and which is wonderful. The poetry itself is wonderful for some, but for those of us who read the accounts of the Terrys, of course, it has fallen flat for us because in using the poetic license and his creativeness to see, I don't know where it was landing on him. His idea was to make their story or their pronouncement more approachable or understanding for people, not just for women, but the problem with that is in doing it, it took out everything that made it enlightened speech, and now it's just poetry. And it took out everything, no reference to the Buddha, no reference to the Dharma, no reference to the actual enlightened experience, because that would be too difficult for us to understand or comprehend. So it brought it down into ordinary kinds of realizations, and in consequence, their voice was lost. But people loved the poetry. The problem was when this poetry becomes the voice of the enlightened bhikkhunis, and there is no enlightenment message in it, then the enlightenment experience is also lost. Now, that would still even be okay, except that it has been portrayed by the publishers as a translation of sorts, like a vibrant contemporary translation. Um, and that's the way it's filed. That's where you can find it along with other translations. But it's not a translation. It's his poetry. It was not their voice at all. And so it has created a big controversy within the Buddhist communities everywhere. And people in the beginning could not see the danger in it. It was like, why are you knocking this guy? But it really has to do, the Buddha said, when the counterfeit, the genuine will remain in the world as long as the counterfeit is not present. But when the counterfeit comes into the world, that which is genuine, that which is true, will be lost. And this is a living example of that. And so it's a cautionary tale. It's not resolved, it's ongoing. um, and I have to admit that I received, several copies, and with the encouragement to start a study, because woohoo, at last the Bhikkhuni voices, ancient voices, are being heard. And they would tell, their story would be something like, um, they may have been married to a monk, and as soon as they married, they went their separate ways, both taking robes. And then she would describe her husband's or ex-husband's enlightenment experience, and then she would describe hers to say it was the very same experience. But his translation would be, marriage is hard, better to go alone. So that left out the whole experience. You see what I'm saying? Now, if I'm living here in Samsara, in this world of suffering, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, marriage is hard, better to go alone, then that might tap into my feelings in a very deep way, but it's not the enlightenment experience. And so and he said he just tried to make help in what they were trying to say. And that's how the unenlightened mind works. It's always trying to help the enlightened, to bring it back over to their side, because they can't understand. But our the great challenge is when there's something that we don't understand, don't try to improve it, try to understand it. Don't, when there's something in the Dharma that we disagree with, sit with that thing. Sometimes there are things I have had to sit with for 15 years. There's some things I'm still sitting with, but I had to sit with for 15 years before I understood it. But 10 years earlier, I thought I did understand. Oh, I got it now, and then some situation would come up, and I was perplexed. And perplexity is, it's a great indicator, that full wisdom prajna is not present, because confusion is present. So then you go back and you thought you understood something, but you see you have more unpacking to do. The only thing that unpacking does is it helps uproot our suffering. That's the only thing unpacking does. It doesn't make us not who we are. It doesn't take away our voice. It doesn't make us um, less in any kind of way. It is only there to encourage, to develop us, to reduce our suffering, to give us more clarity and resolve, to give us more confidence, to give us more strength, to give us more joy, to give us more acceptance. And if we could receive the teachings in this way, as opposed to something to be challenged, to be approved by me, to be disapproved by me, to be rewritten by me, to be, and it's just sort of like the way of the mind that thinks it knows. And so this kind of willingness to suspend is when we disagree with the Dharma. And one thing about disagreeing with the Dharma, we know that this wasn't a divine set of books that fell out of the sky, right? So we know that they were crafted and they were written by men. And part of our scholarship and even stewardship over what has been passed down is to look for the congruence in the teachings. Like if over here he said this is good, and over here he said it's not good, then we have to look at those contexts, and what context is it good and what context is it not good. Then if over here he said it's good and over here he said it's not good, but they're the same context, which one measures up to the standard of the Dharma, or to the perfections of the Dharma, to the qualities of the Dharma? So if he says that the only way over here that anyone can awaken, and over here it says except women, and if you do really good, you might be born a male next life, and then you can awaken. Then you look to see where all of the things that have been said about that, and when they start stacking up 9 to 1, that anyone can awaken. That one lone voice that was saying but only if you're male, then you know that is the product of an unenlightened mind. You see, so we don't have to say, well, we don't know if any of it is true. That's, I guess we could say that is true, but it speaks of itself. That's why you can have confidence in the Dharma. If you have some of the, if you activate, I'll say, some of the factors of awakening. That's why he outlines 37 factors of awakening. These are not just aspects of awakening, but these actually become tools that we can use to decipher and to understand the Dharma, and to sift it, and to allow the truth to shake out. So if your Dharma life is boring, it's because you're lazy, not doing your work. This will keep you dancing on your toes all the time, to penetrate, the truth of the Dharma, and to find something active and alive in it, And so I guess if I had to look at my life, I could say, oh, I don't even have to compare myself to anybody outside. I could just compare myself to Panyadeepa, and I could say, boy, you are woefully lacking, Panyadeepa, because Panyadeepa's so calm, he's so steady, he's so, But the thing is, if you try to be calm and steady, but you have not penetrated the Dharma, you're just going to be lost. You're just going to look calm and look steady. But what it takes to really be free is not there. And it takes a certain amount of activity, active engagement. I know what his life was, this life, but I don't know the mind stream that that uh, that produced was a partner in bringing forth this person, this Paniwadi. But I'm telling you, it must have been some deep, deep practice in previous lives. Um, but maybe it wasn't the same for me. That's why you can't compare. I'm like so happy about the dog. I'm so excited about it every time I find something that gives me strength, that uh, heals a wound, a hurt, a slight, that encourages me when I fall down, when I think I'm missing the boat, when I think don't I understand something, and it turns out that if I had understood it, then I would have handled that in a different way, you know. So that's where I am. You need to know where you are on the map. And when you know where you are, every time you take a bite of the Dharma, you will feel its life uh, flowing into you or activating you in a certain way. So I'm here for all of us who uh, need some encouragement to up your game. That's my purpose. I know my purpose. I used to work in a hospital. This is back when I was a Christian, and I was in the. They didn't have separate hospices at that time, but they had a hospice wing in the hospital, and I was assigned to the hospice wing. And one day they came to me and said, "We're going to have to move you out of this wing because your people aren't dying." And they have a certain, to be transferred in there, there's a certain life expectation, and they were no longer meeting the signs. I said, yeah, well, you all do have the wrong person, because if you call me in here, I'm preaching life to them, and shortly after that, they took me down in the basement of the hospital, and they introduced me to these charismatic nuns and priests and doctors and nurses who are also charismatic, and they're down in the basement of the hospital singing and praying and praising. He said, "You belong to that group." But they took me off that ward because it was messing up their numbers. And so I understand my purpose. When somebody's, dying and they want last rites and want to go out easy, we send Panya deeper. If it's a little shady, like might not be the time, I go, and so um, you should know who you are. That's what I'm saying. This is all about knowing who you are according to the Dharma. And the more you know yourself according to the Dharma, actually, the less you that there is, and there is more of the availability of the Dharma through you as an instrument in your every interaction throughout the day. And even when nobody else is around, that dharmic you begins to interact with the selfing you, the ego you, and begins to transform that one. And so this whole concept of no self, not self, all of this doesn't mean that pinch yourself. You feel that? Yeah, you're right there. But it doesn't mean that you don't exist, but that perhaps you don't in the way that you have constructed a, um, a reality, and that maybe you think of yourself as all the things that you think, or think of yourself as all the things that you know, or all the things you experience, all the things people have said about you. And he was saying that's not the real you. Go deeper than that, because mind is chief. Mind made are we. Whatever we think and ponder on, that becomes the inclination of our mind, the way our mind leans, what we think about, even if it's how we think about ourselves. So you can't co-opt another person's story just because you like it. You can't be somebody else just because you admire them. You know? And you don't have to hold to stories that you made up about you or stories that other people made up about you. I said, just continually look to find yourself in the Dharma, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly. It's all there. And to see it, um, to face it. And as we look, we can say, oh, this needs improving. This is pretty good. This needs feeding. This needs starving, to be what your image of one who is absolutely harmless in the world, one who is absolutely not attached to anything. The one who's not attached to anything can go through anything. The one not attached to anything can go through everything. So, step by step, we increase our capacity to handle the 8 worldly winds of life. We can handle praise without becoming egotistical or really believing the hype. We can yeah, that was pretty good. It's good. You don't have to say it wasn't good. You can accept that it was good and it's no big deal. The praise and the blame. Can we handle blame the same way we handle praise? We are attached to praise, but not so much blame. Loss and gain. We say we know you can't always win, but we do expect to always win. Or if we don't expect to always win, we hope to always win. And if we do hope to always win, we set ourselves up for suffering because we're not going to always win. And we say, oh, yeah, that's a truism. Duh, I know that. But how do you apply that as a salve when you are losing? That's when you need that. It's when you're losing. It's easy to say it when you're winning, but when you're losing, or when fear is coming, fear of lack or fear of insufficiency, and I mean, if you look at it truly, what most rich people fear is their loss of wealth. And they're so focused on it. I mean, but if you look at it, there are so many poor people, they don't have anything. They only have each other. And so you see a kind of love in countries where individual achievement is not the crowning glory of one's life. When there is caring for the group, caring for the family, when that becomes a supreme quality in a society or in a culture. I mean, amongst the people that are walking around on the ground, not a platitude, a political platitude, a governmental platitude, but just among the people, when their view is everyone is as important as me, everyone is as worthy as me. That kind of compassion stacking from the ground up. When one sees that, then they have nothing except their happiness. They deal with suffering and they enjoy any moment of happiness. Go spend time, with people who are suffering like this, and you will see. The only ones who don't are those who aspire to have what the elite in their society have. Then they become obsessed with the same things. They may not have money, but money's always on their mind. For one group, it's how to not lose it. For another group, is how to get it. The same for a person who needs to be recognized, who needs to be noticed, who needs, um, who feels so unworthy, you know, that the jealousy and the envy that grows in them when somebody else is recognized. And they may be thinking in their mind, yes, it's true they did that, but I did such and such and nobody praised me, you know. And so they can't find any happiness in what is true because they're suffering, and they build up within their heart and their mind um, uh, envy and jealousy. That's why the Buddha said, what's the antidote for that? What meditation? Who knows? If you know, unclick and tell me.
Mudita?
And what's mudita in English words?
An empathetic joy in the good fortune of others.
That's right. That's if that's your problem, that you feeling jealousy and envy, that's the practice for you. If you feeling unrecognized, or even if you feel, you may not feel unrecognized, but when somebody else does something, you have like this little twinge, like, why did they get recognition? Or I could have done a better job. In fact, I have done a better job, you know. Then you need to recognize what that is right there, and what the antidote is. See, there's so many, the Buddha said something like 88,000 Dharma gates, for something for everything, every illin chilling moment we have. There is a Dharma for it. It gets no better than that. So it's not like spooky, woo woo, mystical in the ways we have defined mystical, but it is mystical in its transformative capacity to lift us out of our personal suffering and to change the structure of appearances in our life. You see, but this is all up to us. This is our job. And we can't study our way into it. Study gives us a frame of reference. We have to walk our way into it. We have to live in it. And over many, many, many uncomfortable moments. Only uncomfortable because it's different from our usual way of thinking. Now, we're always saying we're creatures of habit. I'm not. I am not a creature of habit, you know. Um, so some things we should stop saying about ourselves, because after a while it becomes our excuse, you know. We're creatures of habit, you know, and we can't put forth the energy to self-correct, you know. Um, so when this whole controversy came out, in the beginning, well, it wasn't a controversy, it was questions. And from the questions, you know, then he started sharing more, and then the outrage began to grow. Actually, I think he should have got some advice on public relations or how to handle this, but he didn't see it as a crisis because the book sales were ringing, you know, and everybody was heralding him as this great, you know, literary uh, like genius to just make this come alive. But then when some people read it, and we know what the Dharma says, I mean, or what how it was expressed in the Dharma, and also have had some experience. No, that's not the enlightenment experience at all. What he's talking about, that's just ordinary mind. Then, you know, then he buckled down, um, uh, and the publisher, uh, we asked for it to be taken out of the category of a translation and put into the category of poetry, you know, and some things like that. And all of this is still going on, and it will get resolved. But that was last week's, and then I got emails. I got emails mostly from those who are very critical thinkers, critical not in the sense of being critical, but who think very deeply, right? You know, and just didn't understand what the hoopla was about. Because see down here at the bottom of his whole introduction, he says that it's not a translation. Well, you can't say it's not in the last sentence if all the sentences before say in 10 different ways that it is, including it being marketed as a translation. I mean, you know, it is or it isn't, you know, and because that leaves it in the nebulous water that those of us who don't have um, a detailed definition of what constitutes translation. One of them is like you should know the language that you're translating, you know, and if you don't know that, it's not. I could pretty much surmise that it's not a translation, you know. So he says, "No, I don't speak Pali. No, I don't know." I sat with them and my mind would be ruminating, and then I'd write something, and it was almost like I was channeling them and uh, uh, so I was channeling them, and then I must have rewritten them 100 times, maybe 150 times before I came out with my final product. Now, some of that I don't fault him. I fault his teachers. Teachers need to tell you the truth, and teachers need to. Um, many of our teachers in the West don't have a firm enough foundation in the Dharma themselves. They really don't. And or some of them do, but that doesn't sell, you know. So yeah, it doesn't sell, and it doesn't get you the tens of thousands of students, because it's the you know, they say broad is the path to destruction, narrow is the way, and few there be that find it. So you should be rejoicing today because you have found the path and you're on the path and treading that path, the path, the path, the path itself. You can't mess that up. Try as you might, you can't mess it up. So the path itself constrains us. The path itself keeps us on firm footing. You know, whenever we find ourselves sliding, you know, all we have to do is turn to the Dharma, and it will help us quickly get back on the path. But if we stay ruminating in our own thoughts as we start to slide, then what a slippery slope it is. So today, and we're going to read something, and I thought of a few verses of a song, and I called Maureen. That's why I was a few minutes late. I said, Maureen, I got the song. Can I sing it to you? Can you, where's your guitar? I said, can you belt it out? She said, yeah, but sister, I can't play it and you sing it because of the time delay. I said, okay, well then let's work out, hammer out the chords. You play the chords first so that they can hear the melody, and then we'll sing it a cappella, you know, and that will be all right. But, you know, because it's not just the words, it's something in the sound. Avalokiteshvara was known for being the bodhisattva that hears not the cries of the world, but the sound of the world. That's the whole vibration. You know, Beethoven said that when he got a symphony, he heard it in one crash. And he said it was his job then to, you know, extrapolate that, to draw it out and linearly write it out to create music. He said, but he heard it in one crash. Have you ever felt like you got something, but you got it in one crash? You're like, ugh, that's like a awakening moment, you know. But sometimes we have to unpeel it. We have to unwind it. You know, that's our part. Bam, we got it. The getting of it comes from the receptivity, the openness. When one is open and one is receptive, you know, then one can get it. And so here, so sometimes it does come in a crash and we have to unpack it. We have to choose the next step. We are constantly choosing the next step. We're choosing it by every action, by every comment we make, by every thought we hold, by every thought we let go of. Nobody is in control of your life but you. You're choosing. It doesn't mean that we control everything outside of us, because we don't, you know. But it's more than just controlling our response to it. If it would be a, you know, that would be a broke system if all I could do was respond, you know. But there was a creative power in this, is what I'm talking to you about today. The creative power. We not only respond, we set things into motion with our thoughts, our speech, our action. We cut things off and we give things a right of way with our thought, our speech, our action. So we're not just cultivating an ability to respond. That's the response is like the afterglow, the also ran, you know, that's the tail wagging the dog. You know, I mean, we just get that by rite of passage, you know, by osmosis, the ability to respond. But it's the creative power that's important. How we are constructing our life, and as well as influencing the life of others, minute by minute by minute by minute. So no matter what's happening in this minute, if I live the next minute, there's an opportunity for something to shift, for something to change, and I can be the catalyst for that. If I can't shift it and I can't change it, and it needs shifting and changing, maybe you'll be the catalyst and I'll just respond. But don't think our ability to respond is the highest and the greatest that we can do. That's what I'm telling you. That's the counterfeit for the real, for the genuine. So when we're doing chin-ups, you know, we have to bring ourselves all the way up over that bar. Tell them about it, Nancy. Putting that chin up over that bar. Otherwise, you just fake it. Nancy was helping me with some problems I was having with I have my muscles and how I use my body, you know, and she showed me exercise. Oh, I could do that one all day long. I'm just like moving my leg. She said, no, wrong muscle. You have to move it from here. When my mind went to that muscle, she touched on my body and said, from here, you move your leg from here. I couldn't even move my leg. Not when my mind was focused on that muscle. That muscle was not working. I did not know I even had it. So I had been moving my body using other muscles, but they weren't the correct ones. And in time, it impeded my mobility. You see what I'm saying? It's not like just using any one. One is as good as another. You know, you need to use the right one. You know, and so that's how we can look when we're doing our best, and yet we feel we missed the boat. We don't say, well, I used a muscle. We don't have to say I didn't do anything. When you know you tried, then then it's not true. That's a lie right there. There's no place else to go with that. But if you know that you did try, you got to look, maybe I used the wrong muscle. And if you don't know the right one, I mean, and sometimes we can grab a book and think we know, oh, here's the picture right here, but better to get with somebody who does know. That's why this is an oral tradition. Well, that might not be the only reason why. I don't know if they had writing in 500 BC. I guess they had some form or something, but it was relayed orally. But the power of the oral tradition is the transmission that goes with the words. It's like being ablaze yourself and taking someone to your breast and they catch on fire. So that's the power of an oral transmission. Of oral tradition. You're relaying, running, like passing the torch of a baton, like taking a light, a match, and lighting another fire. So I say to you, even when you're reading the sutras, read them out loud. If those who relayed it to us are not here, not present, read it out loud. And let the non-self read it to the ego self. So that kind of lines up with our song. But your assignment for this week is every day this week, look for an insight, because we have them all the time. It's like popcorn. Kay has this whirly bird popcorn machine. You put the oil in the bottom and it has these stakes or these things, I don't know. And as the oil heats up and puts the popcorn in the bottom, the seeds, but as the oil heats up, when it's heated sufficiently, then it starts to pop. And it goes pop, 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 pop. And that's how insights come to us. They're popping off all the time. But if we're not looking for them, we might miss them. And sometimes we recognize them, but we don't give it its moment to seep in, to the soil of our being. So it like hits the surface and runs off. So it becomes of no use to us. And so I'm saying to you this week, be mindful enough to recognize when you're having an insight. And each day, take a minute to write just a few lines about your insight. Don't write a book. Don't even write a chapter. Don't write a page. Just a few lines. Less is more. And write only about the experience, not what you realized, but the experience of realizing something. And I'm going to give you an example. Sister, can you put that up on the screen somewhere? So this is someone in our Sangha sent this to me. And for her whole life, she'd been going through something around non-acceptance, not being accepted by her family, being different, things like that. And it was so in her that she's not accepted or that wouldn't be accepted, so deep in her. But yet she knows her worth. she knows her worth. And that's worse. When you don't know your worth, that's bad enough. But when you know your worth, but you're constantly replaying the recording from others, the voices that you've heard all your life, they start to scream a little louder. And you're like, hey, I'm in here. It's not like that. So this year she had an opportunity for transformation, and she seized it. She took hold to it, and she thought she did an excellent job. And I said to her, well, you may have done an excellent job, but you can't look to others to get the worth out of that excellent job. That excellent job is for you. That's for you to know that you kept the faith, that you overcame. That's for you to know. That's your relief. That's your release. And she was so sure that finally she had demonstrated, and that and not only that what she had gained and inherited from that also went for everybody else. And for a minute there was a honeymoon. And then it was over. And she was crushed. And I saw that slide. And I said, no, I'm not going to have this conversation with you. You need to stop it. Because you already know. That's an old story. You've already proven that one false. There's nothing else I can add, nothing else I can say, because you already know for yourself. And she sent me this one. Surrender into the spacious awareness. Free fall through the cracks, letting in the light of this one beautiful experience. And you can feel in it the knowing and the soothing and the release. Now, this is not the only thing she's written to me. Her other emails express different levels of coming out, And sometimes she sent one some reflection and say, what do I think? And I said, I sent back, said, you don't want to know. So I'm going to just send this back to you. Because it was that, like looking for that pity, needing that. No, comes a time we stand on what we know is true about ourselves. That's where the surrender comes in. You're not surrendering to anybody out there. You're not surrendering to the situation or the condition. You're surrendering to your own story. You're surrendering what is not the truth to take up and stand on what is true. Surrender into the spacious awareness, free fall through the cracks, letting in the light of this one beautiful experience. So you see, she's moving in the right direction now. No longer looking for explanations, reasons why, repeating what they said or what they did, or how she felt about what they said or what they did, or justifying none of that. Just a free fall surrender. into the awareness of it all, free falling through the cracks, letting in the light of this one beautiful experience. There is a poet in all of us, even when you don't think so. So, no more than 10 lines, okay? 10 short lines, too. I don't mean 10 lines go all the way across the paper. Words, just finding tidbits. Sometimes expressing less is revealing more. Don't think about it. Just feel into the experience. And it could be something that happens, how something is resolved, how something is instigated. And when you're starting to mount up to meet it, you remember yourself and come back to yourself. What did that feel like? What did that feel like when you surrendered an unwholesome thought or unwholesome behavior, or when you took up something that encouraged you, or when you just let it all go, when you laid it all down? There is the mental as well as bodily feeling of release in every single insight. So you can imagine on that one excellent night, that's what the Buddha called it, on the night of his total awakening. If each one has such a spark, such an explosion, such a fusion, what would the great enlightenment be like? None of us can try to define that experience. That's why we can't improve upon the enlightened experience of another. But we should see and know our own sparks and let the mind incline towards them. Let the mind hold them. So you could have one and you could just keep reflecting on that experience all week. Or you could have one a day, but remember short lines. Just the clarity and the liberation experience is what I'm talking about. Is everybody clear on what I'm asking for? Yeah, you can, as my little granddaughter said one time, she said, no, it was my grandson. I was talking about something and I was a little nervous about it. He said, "You can do it, Grandma." You know, so it's like that. Just tell yourself, you can do it. And what we're doing while we're doing this is we are choosing again and again the big self, the grand ultimate, not our little ego self, our little insecure self, but we're choosing the Buddha nature that is present in us. That's what he said. He said, the seed of this is already in you. He said, if it wasn't, it'd be no way that you could attain. You can't have an apple tree without an apple seed. He said, but because the seed is in you, it is possible. So this is a very short song that we will end on today. You have your assignment. And next week, I would like to hear one or two of them from each person. And we're just going to listen and saturate ourselves in the glory songs, of the Buddha's disciples. It's going to be so lovely. It's going to be so nice. hearing our true voices. So don't not show up. I'll be calling you. So listen, this is the melody of the song, and then we're gonna just touch our hearts and fold inward and sing this song to ourselves. Sorry about that. Yes, Marie. Again and again. You mean so much to me, dear friend. I choose you again. I choose you again and again. Choose you again and again. You mean so much to me, dear friend. I choose you again. And let's sing it 2 times. It goes. Choose. Oh, sorry. Can you put it back on?
Okay.
I hope this works. Choose you again. Choose you again and again. You so much to me, dear friend. I choose you again. Choose you again and again. Choose you again and again and again. Means so much to me, dear friend. I choose you again. Oh, this is how we can nurture ourselves in any given moment. And once we've learned to nurture ourselves in this way, we can surely nurture others. Could you feel like the just the pure love that radiated out of you for yourself? That's how the guy did Ho'oponopono in that uh, solemn for the criminally insane. He sat there and he ministered to himself, and it radiated out to all of the uh, his patients in that ward, and it touched them in a certain way that it healed their minds as he was just working with his own mind. This is powerful stuff we have. Put it in whatever words you need to put it in to make it work for you, but make it work. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always meet the inevitable difficulties of life with courage and without fear.
Thank you, General
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
beautiful. You touched my